Russian propaganda has a big impact in our country, because if our parliament banned 2 years ago the Russian propaganda from TV, we have a lot of pro-Russian websites, as Komsomolskaya Pravda or Moldavskie Ведомости. We have Sputnik, and from these websites are spread many misinformation texts, and also are spread propaganda articles in which are put in a bad light European Union countries or US or NATO or different political parties or political persons from our country. In this case, Russian propaganda affects a lot of peoples, people, especially people which are Russian native language. And unfortunately, in our country, newspaper as Komsomolskaya Pravda has the biggest sales. That's why people believe in these misinformation texts, and this propaganda and fake news have a great impact, negative impact, because they disinform, but they also instigate hate speech between, for example, Russian native speakers and Romanian native speakers.
Mm-hmm. As you said, that its problem is really serious, and who fights against this propaganda today in Moldova? Is there any step, for example, from some governmental institutions to fight against it, or NGOs take to themselves this role?
Now we haven't in Moldova a state institution which will be focused on this fighting of misinformation and fake news. These activities are done by civil society and some journalists which have this profile to debunk fake news and misinformation. There are some of NGOs which do media literacy activities in schools, and also do these activities in villages. As I said, we have at Stop False a big campaign in which we have in each district in Moldova one person's Stop False agents, let's say, or collaborator, and they go through villages to speak with people about this phenomenon of propaganda and misinformation. At the state level, we haven't any institution which has this activity day by day to fight against disinformation and fake news.
Mostly when they became so active, I mean the Russian propaganda in Moldova, it was before, or it became more active after the new government? What do you think?
Misinformation and propaganda, pro-Russian misinformation and propaganda has activities in political. When in Moldova is something happened in political level. But this activity, this misinformation is increasing also when in European countries something is happening. For example, in May, when was the parliamentary elections, we also have many misinformation and propaganda texts about how bad it is in European countries. But we have, and no, this pro-Russian websites is increasing its content when in Moldova or European countries or in USA is something wrong.
Mm-hmm. And you also said that it affects on society, on people. Is there any survey, for example, more concretely, how it affects on people? That do they change their opinion, their mind on political discourse or not?
Um, we see the results of propaganda misinformation in election period. For example, until one half of year before, we have a big holding which was led by Vlad Plahotniuk, democratic leader. Now this media holding is step by step is captured by Socialist Party, by which in the same group with the president Igor Dodon. That's why this propaganda affects voters and affects citizens, especially from villages or from rural area, which they haven't any opportunity or any alternative to see on our news. And there are many narratives which are spread in this period. For example, in election period, narrative as if you vote for somebody, we will come. We will be near Russian Federation, or we will be near European Union, and so on and so on. And people believe in these lies and promises because people are poor, and it is very easy to manipulate and to lie to people which are poor, hungry, or without clothes.
Mm-hmm. If you can compare, for example, pro-Russian media and independent media in Moldova in percentage, how it is?
As I said, we have domestic propaganda and misinformation, and we have an external one. If we'll compare, not pro-Russian, but if we'll compare with independent media and political one or dependent media, I can see that the independent media is almost 30%, but dependent media and media which do everyday propaganda and misinformation is almost 70%. Do you see this comparison between independent media? And we have to compare also with the machinery or the biggest team in Russian media institutions, and one or two persons which every day write about disinformation and fake news. For example, we have this website stopfalse.media, and here we are two persons which debunk fake news and misinformation. Just two persons. And let's do this comparison with 10 or 100 people day by day write and do and spread this misinformation and fake news.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested about the conflict region, Transnistria, which you have. How does it affect Russian propaganda there? How they work? Is it different compared to here, or what is their target in Transnistria?
Unfortunately, in Transnistria, they have no alternatives to see on our channels, independent channels, because if they have digital television channel, they have this alternative. If they are poor and they don't have this alternative, unfortunately, they watch just on pro-Russian media or pro-Russian TV stations. That's why we have the results of voters in Transnistria, which many of them are pro-Russian, because they are influenced by Russian television, which day by day do this propaganda.
And there is no, can you say that there is no independent media or no, who, for example,
Televisions, independent televisions.
yes, in Transnistria?
There are some, but if they have alternative to have digital TV station, they have this alternative. But if they don't have a good TV set, they don't have alternative to connect on digital station to see another information. For example, Euronews or some independent TV station from our country, from this part of the Dniester River, because Transnistria is also in our country.
Yeah. And for example, say concretely about the fake news which you which kind of fake news is spread among this can you remember, for example, one in a day which you reveal it?
We have this known fake news about the invasion of 40,000 Syrians, if you heard about this. In presidential election in 2016, some media spread the information if Maya Sandu, which then was the candidate for presidential election, if she will win the chair of president, she was agreed with Angela Merkel to bring in Moldova 30,000 Syrians. And this narrative and this misinformation and fake news was spread, and unfortunately people believed in this lie. We also have another misinformation if Moldova will be a European member country. EU community will ban to cut the pig, or something like that, because we have this association agreement with the European Union. Another misinformation is about Romanian citizenship in Moldova, because almost 1/3 of Moldovan citizens have double citizenship, also Romanian citizenship. And if no, Romania is a European member country, and it is spread periodically this narrative. If, for example, Moldova will come a European member country, Romanian will accaparate this field, Moldova. We also have disinformation about Ukraine, because there are some texts in which are spread the narrative if, for example, Ukraine and Moldova will become a European country. The Russian Federation, we don't help this country with, for example, fuel or our products.
But it's a very same. This misinformation which you now mentioned in our country, it's almost the same.
We have the common narrative. That's why I think I am working now with one colleague from Georgia to do a video about the common narrative in Georgia, Ukraine, and Moldova, because we had the same topic. For example, refugees, religious association agreement, and day by day pro-Kremlin machinery spread this disinformation and spread in a organized way. Because, for example, I monitorize for some weeks Sputnik News, which is in English, and also I monitorize Sputnik in Russian and the Sputnik in Romanian language, and I see they have the same text, but they are translated in different language to spread this misinformation in a rapid way. That's why I said about these teams, which we are 2 persons, and there are a lot of people to spread this fake news, and that's why they have a great impact.
What can be done to fight against this? Yeah, it's a so serious problem, not for only Moldova, but for other countries too. What do you think? For example, you mentioned that you work only for 2 people to fight against this.
I think there have to be done 3 main activities. One activity is that journalists have to write day by day about this phenomenon of misinformation and fake news, and to give some, in their text, to give some advices to people how to identify this misinformation. For example, to be attentive at the offer, at the date, to find this text or topics in our media outlet. Another activity is to do media literacy in schools and in villages and in cultural institutions, to speak with people about this phenomenon also in media and social media, because pupils or students now they are living in social media, and social media also is a field to misinformation. And another tool, I think, is in the hand of public institutions. They have to identify and to sanction people who spread intentionally this misinformation.
And I want to hear your opinion about, for example, sometimes they call Ukraine banned some media who was spreading the Russian propaganda and so on. What do you think about the banning of such media? Is it correct, or in this case, what can be done?
If we refer to Ukrainian, they have a war. They have, let's say, a war in 2 parts: a physical war and an information war. I think is not a good solution to ban something. It is very good to inform people, to train them how to do this difference between fake news and misinformation. We, as I said, we also have this law in which are banned Russian television from Russian television in Moldova, but just for informative programs. Not for TV shows or another kind of programs, just for TV informative programs and news. It is correct to inform people. We have to have a good and trained public, because these trainings will do this public more powerful, and if they have the sufficient knowledge to do a difference between fake news and misinformation, they don't be so easy victims of propaganda and misinformation.
Yeah, but as you said, the fight between this is unequal, because 70% media is pro-Russian and, for example, 30 is. So in this case, how can the independent media succeed with this fight?
In this case, I see this guilty in our audiovisual institution, because if audiovisual institution will give big sanctions for journalists or for media institutions which disinform or do some activities against the audiovisual code, will be some rules which are respected by both parts, by journalists in political media institutions and independent journalists. But as I said, we have audiovisual institution, a political one, and their decisions are held by according to politician preferences of politicians.
So to sum up, from the government, it is not taken as a problem, yes, and only the civil society fights against
Exactly.
the misinformation. and
Exactly.
propaganda.
Civil society and journalists, unfortunately.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.